Hey everyone, today we're looking at Dead by Daylight survivors and considering how capable they are in the realm. This was a video I did a while back, but it's super outdated, and I also want to use slightly different criteria than what I used before. I want to judge it this time by the in-game categories the survivors have, these being survival, objective, altruism, and boldness. These being the categories needed to survive in the realm. The ideal survivor for the realm is going to be good at all these things. So hopefully with this criteria we can try to find the most well-rounded survivor from the roster, ranking the survivors from least to most effective within the realm. Or the survivor who's the best survivor, I guess. We have 5 tiers. Would not survive, has a decent chance, can hold their own, will have no trouble, and finally, the killers should be running. I'll indicate point scores on screen also whilst I explain my reasoning. I'm going to be judging objective off of the character's ability to focus, formulate plans, and their ability to achieve goals. Survival is just how well they survive within their stories. Altruism is the extent to which they help others, and the reasons for doing so. Then boldness is judged by how they react in the face of danger, and their general fear level. Let's start off with those who seem unfit for the realm, and would likely struggle to survive based on what we know. Dwight we can note to be quite objective focused, although his lore kind of shows him to be the opposite, and a bit of a pushover, preferring to stay in his job where he does very little. He's also clearly lacking in both altruism and boldness, with his inaction toward his co-workers, who are tormented by his boss. The boldest move he makes is spiking him, but even that is a fairly sneaky action, more than bold I would say. He appears to be a good survivor though, and his general low profile makes him able to avoid the killers. Jeff's main strength is probably altruism, with him suffering a lifelong injury to his face after saving someone in a concert. There's nothing substantial to suggest he has strength in objective, or survival, or boldness really either, but I would say he's slightly above others, with how he turned his life around, and persisted with his art. He has a rough upbringing, but persists throughout. Felix, despite his years with the Pariahs, seems kind of out of it by the time of the realm. It's unclear really how much of his training from his parents has stuck. He does escape the entity on one occasion, although with the Imperiati's help. But we can still classify this as a survival feat, I would say. I would say he has a good objective mind, as a result of his architectural skill, and generally because of his logical mind. His backing down from searching for his parents like Elodie did definitely lessens his boldness and altruism, but doesn't diminish it. Nia has a little bit of everything when it comes to the areas of skill. She has some altruism, although is often misguided in her actions. She has quite a bit of boldness in tagging the mayor's car and Crotus Pren Asylum, but she lacks focus in her actions, making her weak in the objective area. However, her life fleeing the police and tagging different places makes her survival pretty good. Ace is a proven survivor throughout his lore, escaping debt collectors for years and outlasting professional fighters in fights. He's not someone I would consider altruistic, nor particularly objective focused though, with him seemingly not being that great at gambling, with his constant losses and debt. His carefree attitude and smile to the face of danger does suggest a certain boldness though. Moving on to those who have a decent chance of survival. Feng is very motivated, and her perks suggest her greatest strength would be the objective category, with her finding great success in esports. She treats things like a game, completing the main objective and surviving. She doesn't have much in the way of altruism though, but I would say a decent amount of boldness and survival, although there isn't too much to indicate in these areas. Jane doesn't exactly have the best background to be a survivor in the realm. As a celebrity, she's likely going to be good for objective, becoming incredibly successful, and persisting with her career. This I would say also proves a certain amount of boldness. By putting herself out there, she has a degree of altruism, as she does sometimes use her show to help others, and some survival I guess too, with her being in the entertainment business. Laurie shows a strong ability to survive, managing to be the only survivor of Myers in Halloween. She's shown to be altruistic when protecting the children, and attempting to protect her friends. She lacks some boldness, I think, mainly fleeing from Myers and only facing him at the very end, although I wouldn't say she really had another option there. I would say her objective ability is also questionable, with her having very little in the way of a plan or strategy when it comes to escape and survival. Tap is someone extremely objective focused, becoming obsessed with his goal of uncovering the Jigsaw Killer. I would say this comes at the cost of altruism though, resulting in his partner's death, and later his own. He doesn't lack boldness, but his survival, well, I mean he doesn't survive Saw, so I don't think we can place it that highly. Jonah's logical mind and approach to things I think will likely mean he excels objectively in the realm. The thing he lacks I think is altruism. Even though he does try to correct his wrongdoings, it doesn't really make up for the damage done. His defiance against the CIA and his multiple times of near-death experience definitely puts his boldness and survival up there too. Meg's clearest strength is her running ability, and her general boldness, named Dare Damsel Meg in her lore, and doing risky things like stealing a piece of tire from a police car. She can have an objective focus for situations she cares for, like her running, but otherwise doesn't seem overly concerned with a greater goal. She cares for her mother for over a year, even sacrificing a potential running career for her, which is incredibly altruistic. Survival may be her weakest area. Jake's clearest strength is survival, known for being a good and self-sufficient survivor during his days out in the woods. This I would also argue gives him a higher degree of boldness, with him facing off certain dangerous wildlife like wolves. His lacking area is objective, which I would debate is almost none, with him preferring to vibe out in the woods over pursuing anything in particular. His perks also reflect a certain amount of altruism with both wildlife and humans. David is both bold and adept at survival, through his years of fighting, debt collecting, and recklessness. His perks also reflecting this in the realm. We can see some altruism with David too, although in his lore it only really extends to his friends and no one else. David's weakest area is objective, with him lacking motivation and becoming easily discouraged and misguided. Yunjin's clearest lacking area is altruism, acting largely selfishly throughout her lore, at the cost of the lives of others. This weirdly does make her seem like a great survivor though, surviving under the circumstances she finds herself in, and being the only surviving victim of the trickster. She's also very objectively focused, making the trickster a success despite his erratic behavior. This also proves a good degree of boldness, pushing through many situations and making him a success regardless. Quentin is shown to have great survival skills in A Nightmare on Elm Street, using creative strategies to overcome Freddy, and with a fairly keen detective mind that manages to uncover the truth. He is altruistic throughout, and has many moments of boldness, throwing himself in the way and the face of danger. His only downside really is he's only done this one time round. Let's now move on to those who can definitely hold their own, or could be considered adept survivors. Claudette has a clear strength in altruism, having perks centered entirely around healing and botany. She does however lack boldness, and is known to be quite timid and reserved. She has a solid objective focus though, with her earning an early placement in college, and her interest in botany doubles up as a good means of survival, making her a pretty adept survivor too. Nancy and Steve are pretty on par when it comes to their survival skills, with similar experiences in the Stranger Things universe. Each are equally bold I would say, with Steve being more altruistic with his babysitter role, and Nancy being more objective focused, with her often acting as the detective and formulating plans. Adam is shown to be very altruistic and caring, saving a girl during the train derailment, and in general acting as a positive role model for his students. I would also score Adam very highly in objective, with him stated to be hardworking and focused, particularly in tough situations. There isn't an abundance of things to suggest boldness or survival, so I think he scores fairly averagely in those categories. Michaela shows boldness with her attempts to record the entity, after it begins invading her dreams. She is fearful, but ultimately she does tough it out and survives and avoids multiple attempts the entity makes on taking her. She's shown to be very altruistic, always helping others with her stories, and her different cures she concocts through her magic. Her main weakness is objective, with her lacking focus often, and finding it difficult to achieve her greater goal of completing her perfect horror story and stopping the entity, although she achieves conclusion with both of these in one move, which definitely bumps her points, I think. She does form a decent plan to record the entity also. Ada, like basically every Resident Evil character, does not lack boldness or survival skill in any way, surviving a multitude of bioweapons and essentially apocalypse events. In RE2, she completes her objective of retrieving the vaccines, and even manages to return to save Leon, showing some altruism, although not the highest amount, with her still knowingly betraying him earlier in the game. She's focused and efficient though. Hattie is a character who has a ton of prep before entering the realm, knowing a lot about the supernatural, and having powers essentially, that she can access in areas of great darkness, which leads her to some of the scariest places around the globe. Hattie has great love for Jordan and her adoptive parents. The Hattie in-game I wouldn't say is a perfect survivor out of her many universal selves, but she has many strong qualities. Cheryl doesn't lack boldness, nor the ability to survive the horrors of Silent Hill. She completes her objective of defeating the Order and Claudia during Silent Hill 3, and she is driven initially by the death of her father, and the desire to avenge him, which is altruistic to some extent. Let's now look at the characters who aren't really going to have too much trouble in the realm. Kate's clearest strengths I think are her altruism and survival skill, seen through her care and her surviving of the entity. She has some boldness too, venturing toward danger and generally lacking fear despite the entity's presence. She's also a pretty successful singer, and well loved by many, showing strength in the objective category. Yoichi is known to have a great mind, and is shown to be effective at researching the supernatural. He shows boldness in way of actively attempting to locate the darkness that haunts him, quite literally going into the eye of the storm, all to potentially save his students that died to Sadako, or potentially save them and others. And he's somewhat successful, depending on how you view it. Rebecca has proven survival skills throughout Resident Evil, being an adept medic and survivor. I don't think she has quite as an impressive track record as many of the other RE characters, but she has clear strength in both altruism and boldness, with some weakness in survival and objective, with her only scraping through some situations, but nevertheless surviving. Ash's main weakness is the objective category, with his complete and persistent lack of focus. He excels however in both boldness, survival, and debatably altruism too. Spoilers for Ash vs Evil Dead, but he straight up stabs a knife into his own heart just to go and save his friend, with no guarantee that it's even going to work, which, you know, may just be dumb, but it's also pretty altruistic. He loves those close to him, he's just not the best at showing it. He's actually very well-rounded, but just dreadful at coherent plans and focus of any kind. Leon is proven to be well-rounded for all the categories. He's focused throughout RE2, faces down Mr. X, and many other bioweapons despite being a rookie cop, and he acts throughout incredibly altruistically despite his life-threatening situation. Now let's move on to the survivors, who have the best chance of survival in the realm, and the ones I perceive to have perfect scores or near perfect scores in the categories. The real killers of the realm, basically. Zarina is proven to be greatly altruistic, dedicating her life to exposing the killers of her father and other wrongdoings of the world. She puts herself in the way of danger and the sightlines of gangs, and she gets through it all without too much danger coming her way. She also has amazing objective focus, successfully exposing her father's killers and finding great success with her documentaries. Elodie is up there for being a good survivor. Her years of working for the Collector after surviving the entity attack has made her a good survivor, and she certainly doesn't lack boldness. fearlessly facing down cults. Her altruism I would consider very high, with her losing her parents at a young age, and dedicating her life to recovering them from the realm of a spider god, which is pretty cool of her. This is her main objective in life, and something she sticks thoroughly to also. Jill is a character who excels in every category, and doesn't afraid of anything. Her boldness isn't in question, and probably is the most appropriate for the realm, as she fled Nemesis for the entirety of RE3. She also survived both Raccoon City and the Spencer Mansion. In both instances, she uncovers the wrongdoings of Umbrella, showing her objective strength. Finally, she's incredibly altruistic, placing herself in the way of danger many times to save others. Bill is proven to be adept in every category. He's objectively strong and focused, incredibly altruistic to the point of sacrificing himself, and survives an unbelievable number of things. His boldness can be seen through his complete lack of fear, fighting in wars and a literal apocalypse, and seeing it as just another day. He has a clear and focused mind and is a strong leader. Yui is a very well-rounded survivor. She is highly focused and a high achiever, making her strong in the objective category. She's also literally a great mechanic, making her likely pretty good at the gens. She's very altruistic, supporting her group the Sakura 7, and caring for her fellow competitors mid-race. Her survival skills can be seen through her pulling through many scrapes from her years of riding motorbikes, and also her survival from her stalker attacking her, in which she gets the upper hand. Her boldness is also extremely clear through her racing, and just general attitude toward life. She just may be the perfect survivor for the realm. Alright, well that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know where you would place these characters down below. Thanks, and goodbye.